Welcome to episode 18 of the We'll Bring the Popcorn Entertainment Podcast. I am Brad, this is Josh, and on today's episode we're talking about X-Men 97 episode 8, and this is the first part of the three-part finale, and then we will be reviewing the film The Fall Guy.
Looking forward to that as well. But we did want to start off with the news, unfortunately, that just broke like right as we were getting ready to start recording, but Bernard Hill, an actor known for most famously probably playing King Theoden in Lord of the Rings. He was also the captain on the Titanic, has unfortunately passed away at the age of 79, so our condolences and thoughts with his family. I know King Theoden was one of the most important characters in that film, and it's a film that, you and I both hold, very dearly to ours, like a film series. The Lord of the Rings are among our favorites of all time, but, just awful news coming out this morning right before we started recording.
Yeah, I hated seeing that this morning. He was just in here last year at Cincy Comic Expo, and I mean, his role in Lord of the Rings was so important and so well acted because he had, he was under that spell and had to act a certain way, and then he gets released and he's acting another way, and he's got a good little evolution in that film, and so important, so great. But yeah, we are so saddened to hear about his passing.
Absolutely.
Heading into our regular news stories now, we have Jeff Bridges is returning for Tron Ares. So it's been 42 years since the original Tron.
Unbelievable.
But what surprised me the most, because I know it's been a few years, it's been 14 years since Tron Legacy. I know it's been a couple, but I wasn't remembering it 14 years ago.
It just goes to show how the passage of time lately has been just... I know it seems like there's like a 5 to 6 year period around, the last 5 or 6 years or so that it just feels like time is all like looped together, and you're like, this actually happened that long ago. I remember going to see Tron Legacy in the theater and being excited for it when it came out. Obviously, I wasn't alive when the original Tron came out, but like Tron Legacy was a big deal when it came out, and it's 14 years now. That's insane. And now Jeff Bridges has announced that he's coming back, and we're getting another Tron film. The advancements in technology from just the previous film to now is going to be insane. I'm excited to see what they do for this film and just the visual spectacle that it's going to be.
Yeah, especially when it comes to, in Tron Legacy, Jeff Bridges was used as a younger version of himself within there, and it looked okay. But yeah, 14 years from now, what we've seen Marvel and other people do with de-aging tech and all that, we don't exactly know what his role and part's going to be, but I love that he's coming back to this franchise that he's been a part of for 42 years.
Yeah, and there's still not a lot of information about what the film's going to be about, what the plot of the film is, but the fact that he signed on to do it, I'm excited for it. I love the Tron films. The Tron films are a lot of fun. We've got some awesome rides for it at amusement parks now for it as well, and just seeing that story continue is very exciting. Like you said, that's one of those types of films that can take advantage of the technology at the time and really kind of show off things that we're capable of doing. And I'm excited to see what they put together for it.
Oh yeah, it should hopefully, with that advancement in technology, look really stunning.
Agreed. And we'll keep our eyes on that as it gets developed a little further, and we get to see what they're actually going to do with it, who all's going to be a part of it. It's exciting stuff. But moving on to our next story, we have Manuel Miranda is writing the film score for the live-action Mufasa Lion King film, which just dropped a trailer this week. It looks fantastic visually, but it's exciting to see him, put the music to the film for this. So, the Lion King is known for iconic music scores, like the Elton John songs that were in that film were amazing. Just an incredible music score, but the fact that he's attached to it, it's pretty exciting too.
Oh yeah, I mean, he is the guy right now if you want something musically, because what he did with Moana, that we're still singing the songs from that in our household. Hamilton, just everything he's been a part of has been just insanely good. So to have him be part of this prequel is really interesting, and should be fun to see what kind of songs he comes up with.
Yeah, and it's just with the trailer dropping this week, you get your first look at what it's going to look like, and visually it looks absolutely incredible. I know I'm excited to see that. Lion King's probably top 3 animated film all time for me. It's so good. It's still good to this day. The music is amazing. You still go in and sing all the songs and, get all the feelings from the movie, the tragedy, the happiness. Like it takes you on a roller coaster. So I'm excited to see what this prequel live action type film is going to look like and what kind of story they tell. But visually, it looks amazing.
Yeah, my youngest daughter is obsessed with The Lion King. She always has to have her Simba and her baby Simba that we got at Disney World. Everywhere she goes, it's got to be with her. She absolutely loves The Lion King. So I showed her the trailer, and she, when's it coming out? Like, she was so excited to see it. But again, awesome. You also don't know what to expect with it because we know the original animated, and of course, when they redid it for the live action, since most of it's CGI, that it does have that deeper, darker, emotional stuff to it. So we don't know what, this full story, because I know there's been like Lion King 2.5 and a few others, but I don't know what in this prequel that we've seen before from any of the other Lion Kings, or if this is something, kind of completely new that we're going to experience for the first time.
I love it. I'm looking forward to this movie so much. It's gonna be a lot of fun when it comes out later this year for sure.
So moving on over to Netflix, they're taking on Scooby Doo now. So we have a live action Scooby Doo series coming to Netflix. Greg Berlanti is producing it. We had the live action films that were a little mixed on. They were fun for kids, but those that grew up Scooby Doo had kind of mixed results to it. But it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this, because they have done some more adult, I think it was the Velma series, a little more adult,
very much so.
Scooby-Doo. So we don't know if this is going to be aimed at kids, at adult. I would think it would have to be aimed at kids.
Yeah, and I'm excited that they're putting it into a TV series. I've always felt Scooby-Doo works better as like an episodic TV series because, we all grew up with the Scooby-Doo cartoons and how great they were, and, such classic stories that they told. They're a lot of fun. They're cheesy. They're a good time. I still like to, when I'm gaming with my friends, like when I do something shady in a game, I'll be like, I would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for you meddling kids or whatever. But and it's part of the lexicon of pop culture. Scooby-Doo is as popular as it is. I do think it works better in an episodic TV format, and I'm curious to see what Netflix does with it, because it live action, when you're dealing with like a talking dog, it's very, very hit or miss, and it misses a lot more than it hits. So I'm definitely cautious. I want to say cautiously optimistic when it comes to the show, because like you said, we hold those cartoons as dearly as we do, but it doesn't always make a good live action transition. And so I'm curious to see what it's going to look like. I'm definitely going to check it out at the very least. But like I said, I do feel like it does work a little bit better in that TV format.
Oh, yeah, I agree. And this is one that's the same kind as like Tron.
Sure.
That it's going to benefit from the technological advancements of CGI and mocap and everything else to be able to do. Because you said, there's not been very many talking animals past like Rocket in, Guardians of the Galaxy that have really looked that great and done that well, especially because Scooby-Doo is so animated in his reactions and things that happen. So hopefully the passage of time from the movies to now this live action series has given them enough to be able to do a proper CGI Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, and that's definitely something to keep an eye on as it moves forward. But that's exciting news because we both love that show, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I hope, and we'll see how it holds up practically. Yep. So moving on to like what I think is a pretty interesting bit of news. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which, spoiler alert, we are going to see. It comes out this week, and we're going to review it next week. But when it comes out on the home release for the film, it's going to feature a version of the film that I don't think we've ever seen before. And the actors that do the CGI motion capture for the apes, you're going to see that version of the film without the CGI. So you're going to see them in their full mocap suits, doing the acting, running through, doing the scenes and everything like that. It's a really interesting version of a film that they're going to put out. Like, it's something we haven't seen before, but I'm very excited to see, what that's going to look like. Because like you said, we're going to see the film, but just to have that frame of reference when we go see the home version too, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this because I love behind the scenes stuff and the advancements and things that they're doing with motion capture. These actors are giving the full performances and everything that are being translated for video games, for movies, TV shows, and to be able to put the CGI over and let them see because, famously from Lord of the Rings and everything else with Andy Serkis, who's not involved with this version of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, he kind of helped kicked off the reboot of the Apes. He is like the king of mocap.
Absolutely.
And hasn't got the recognition he really deserves when it comes to awards or acting, talking about actors in that way. So to actually see what the actors go through and do to get these performances for the Apes is going to be really fascinating.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, like I said, because it's not something you're used to. We're all used to seeing the finished product. We don't get to see everything that goes into making these films look the way they do and feel the way they do. And it's going to feel like a nice homage to the people who do put in that hard work to do these type of motion capture acting, and it's going to be really cool to see it. I know we're going to talk about The Fall Guy, which in its way it's its own, ode to stuntmen and things like that. But I love that we're getting these types of things to help maybe shed some light on a lot of these other people that do so much work to put these films together, and just to kind of, highlight their, talents and show off their abilities and pay homage to that. Like I'm looking forward to that, because it's something we haven't gotten a lot of, but it feels like, people are starting to get their flowers a little bit, and I'm very much excited for that.
Absolutely. And for them to announce it before the film's even out is kind of intriguing, because you think that would be something maybe they would announce right before it comes out on home video or something, but before the movie even comes out, like, hey, we're going to release this mocap version. Like, okay, I'll be there for it. Put it in theaters too. I'll go watch it.
Absolutely.
Moving on to our next story. So Margot Robbie, we've been having so many stories about films and everything else that she's producing, and we were curious if we were going to see her starring any of them, and it looks like she might have her first one with Avengelyne. So she's looking to star as the lead in Avengelyne, another comic book property. She was, of course, Harley Quinn. Tony McNamara, who wrote Poor Things, is writing the script, and they're actually working with Warner Brothers right now. It's looking like a 7-figure deal to bring, that film underneath Warner Brothers. But yeah, as I mentioned, we were wondering how many of these she's going to star in, and she's picking up the, it's a little lesser known comic book story, but it's more than likely going to be a big comic book movie.
Well, yeah, and, Margot Robbie's been a very busy woman, as we've talked about, which is fantastic. She's amazing, right? Everything she touches lately seems to do really, really well. And the fact that she's jumping back in front of the camera as well as doing the production work behind it, she's going to be very busy with this film as well. And I'm excited to see how it turns out, because if you know anything about a film, or those types of comic book stories that are a little more towards the adult side, if you want to look into that, feel free to do so. I'm curious to see how they present this character and how she presents this character, because, she's so entrenched. I think people have so much entrenchment for her for the Harley Quinn character as far as comic books go, and obviously with Barbie too. Like, we'll see how she can make this character come to life as well, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, that's going to be a good lineup there of Harley Quinn, Barbie, and Avengelyne, because they're all so vastly different from each other. But it shows a great range that she has in an actress to be able to take on all these different roles. And I look forward to seeing the movie. Like, I would think it'd have to be PG-13 to probably R. I'm thinking it's probably R for what I've looked at of the comics, that it's going to be something like Deadpool, that it's meant for the adult comic book lovers.
Which I'm here for. You know what I mean? If they want to tell the authentic versions of these stories and they skew more towards the adult side, sure, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? If it makes sense, don't do it just to do it. But if the story makes sense to tell it this way, I'm all for it.
Yep.
So moving on to another story, we got Furiosa coming up this month, which we're both looking forward to. But George Miller, it appears, has already written the story for a follow-up, I want to say prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, but he's working on a new Mad Max film, which I think is set 1 year before that film. Yep. So another Mad Max story is in the works, and like I said, this is a film that Furiosa, at least, that you and I are both looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they did with Furiosa. I love Anya Taylor-Joy, and of course, got Chris Hemsworth, and George Miller has done an amazing job with the Mad Max series. Like, Fury Road was such a over-the-top, insane blast to have, and Furiosa is going to be the same. And now that he's doing another prequel that's after Furiosa, before Fury Road, I guess he really has a story that he loves that he's trying to tell, because you thought maybe, all right, he did a prequel, he's going to go past Fury Road and we're going to go somewhere else. But
he might eventually.
We're going back before Fury Road, but I'm all for it. These are the movies and theaters that we love to go to, that we can just go have a loud, over-the-top, action-packed blast with in theaters that just make it so much fun.
Yeah, George Miller is one of those is one of those people that when you go see one of his films, you know it's one of his films. He has such a unique way of presenting a type of film. It's shot a certain way, it looks a certain way, it has a certain aesthetic to it, and you can just tell it's a George Miller film. And I'm excited because these are really good stories that they tell. I haven't seen a Mad Max film so far that I haven't enjoyed. So the fact that he's doing another one and he's got a story in mind that he wants to tell, I'm excited to see where he takes it.
Yep, absolutely ready for that. Give me all the Mad Max that we can get because they've just been a blast. Moving on to Cobra Kai. So we finally got the announcement that season 6, which is the final season, is coming out. It's going to be 15 episodes, but it's kind of an interesting release to it because we're getting it in 3 parts. Yep. So part 1 is going to come out July 18th. Part 2 is November 28th, but part 3 is not till sometime in 2025. So you're looking 6 to 7 months in between the start of the final season to the very end, which is kind of interesting that they're spreading it out that far.
Yeah, I'm curious to see why they wanted to do it this way. I know they've been doing that with some of their bigger properties lately. Like we talked before we started recording, the way they rolled out the last season of Stranger Things, it was all but a handful of episodes in one half and a handful of the rest of the half. And it's curious to see why they make that decision to do it that way. But Cobra Kai is a show that you and I are both very big fans of. It's been so well done. The Karate Kid films were part of our childhood growing up. We both love those, those series of films. Cobra Kai was something that we didn't know we would enjoy at the time because it's had a little bit of a rocky road as far as like being put out. I think it was put behind the paywall of YouTube for the first, I want to say season or 2. I forget how long it was on a premium YouTube site before it got moved to Netflix, and it's just exploded off of Netflix. Yep. And, each of these 5 seasons have all been fantastic. I've loved every season. It does feel like it's about time to wrap it up because I think they've taken that story almost as far as they could take it, but it seems like they're going big for this final season, and I'm here for it. So I'm guessing it's going to be released in 5 episode increments maybe, or what have you. I'm curious to see how long the episodes are going to be. I'd love to see like hour-long episodes and things of that nature. But it's exciting. It's coming to an end, and I'm curious to see how they end the series.
Yeah, I'm wondering too now if there is a tie-in with the new Karate Kid movie that they're doing because Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan are returning to that, but those were never really connected.
Right.
That was supposed to come out later this year. It's now delayed until 2025. So maybe those last 5 episodes have a tie-in to the movie to bring us, maybe we see Jackie Chan appear. Or that's what I'm trying to think of why they would take it so long. And after we get this announcement after they announce the delay of the movie, maybe there's that tie-in that they want to bring it all together of how, Ralph Macchio goes from Cobra Kai back into some situation with the film. So that's kind of where I'm leaning, that this is why we have a to be determined date of 2025 for the last 5 episodes.
Yeah, and like I said, we're excited to see how they wrap this up. We've loved this show. It's been so good. It's been a surprise hit to everybody that this show has been as popular as it was because, I remember the discourse around the show when it first came out, I was like, do we really need a Karate Kid series? But it wound up being so good and so well written that it's blown up into this incredibly popular series that we've grown to love. And, we're going to send it on a what sounds to be a nice farewell over 15 episodes. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, because we've talked about a lot on here about older franchises, movies, shows, everything being brought back and doing new versions. When it came out, we had similar thoughts, like why after all this time do we need more? Because as mentioned, the Will Smith, Jaden Smith, Jackie Chan movie kind of rebooted a little bit, and then we came back to the Karate Kid that we grew up with. Was it needed? Was it going to work out? But it has just enough nostalgia charm that get our generation who grew up on it loving it because you got all the throwbacks and everything. But I think it ended up expanding enough to get the new generation involved with it. And so this was kind of the one that we can look at, or a few, Top Gun Maverick, that it was worth revisiting this franchise after so long.
Yeah, so we've covered quite a bit of nostalgia already. I want to move to another topic that's big on nostalgia for you and I growing up was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Mm-hmm. And now it sounds like director Travis Knight is working on a live-action Masters of the Universe film that's going to come out in 2026. So looks like we're going back to the live-action He-Man story. And, I think a lot of that has to do with the success of the recent Kevin Smith Netflix Masters of the Universe animated series that's come out and has been pretty popular. But I mean, immediately your mind, when you hear these things, your mind goes to like fantasy casting, who they're going to be, and I don't know, who would you want to see play a new He-Man?
I have a hard time seeing anybody but Alan Ritchson be it because I mean the guy, especially if you've seen Ungentlemanly Warfare, of where his bulk is at right now, like. He's He-Man. He can act. He's got the charm. He can do the humor, and he can do the darker stuff too. But because as he's shown from Reacher, and from the comic books, like physically, he's He-Man. Like I don't know who else you could look at other than The Rock or even Henry Cavill if he's bulking up. But I think even Alan has like 3 inches or so on Henry Cavill. So like. Immediately, he was a first person. Like, if you want someone who can act and has the bulk and can do action, like, he's your man for He-Man.
Yeah, you say that, and it was the first name that came to my mind too, because it's like, who could you realistically put in here that could have the acting chops to make it good, right? Mm-hmm. And Alan Ritchson was the first name that came to my mind as well. I think he's a perfect fit for it. We don't know yet who's going to be cast for it, obviously, so we'll keep an eye on that to see who plays it. But yeah, more nostalgia kicks coming for us in the form of a live-action He-Man film.
Yeah, because we had the Masters of the Universe done in the 90s, which had Dolph Lundgren as He-Man in it. That was silly, goofy, not the greatest movie. It's still kind of a guilty pleasure that I'll go back and watch every now and then, not just because it's a great film, but it's just so silly to see, and seeing Dolph Lundgren being He-Man is kind of a blast with it. Like it's so over the top and ridiculous, and I think it was one of the first films I ever saw Courtney Cox in.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but they could surprise me and go with someone other than Alan Ritchson, but especially with star power and now his star power is growing. Like, absolutely. I don't know who else you could go for him. And of course you're going to have maybe another actor, smaller, younger actor playing Prince Adam, depending on the method they go, because with the Dolph Lundgren run, we didn't really get the duality between Prince Adam and, He-Man.
Well, while we're on my mind immediately goes back to the original Captain America movie and how they CGI'd smaller Chris Evans as Steve Rogers before you got to see the real, Chris Evans bulked up as Captain America. My mind immediately goes to that and how comically funny it would be for Alan Ritchson to get the same treatment and have him just be like this little petite Prince Adam and then,
I mean, they could.
That
would be funny.
It would just look absolutely ridiculous, but I'd be here for it just to see it.
It would also make his actual physique look even more ridiculous if they did that, because it kind of did with Chris Evans. Like, he got bulked big time for that, but having his CGI skinny to the actual physical that he went, like, it caught you off guard. Yeah, but hopefully it's good. You're looking at something that's high fantasy action, absolutely. Over the top. Could be a lot of fun if they get it right. And he did Bumblebee and everything, that he can handle action. So it should be fun, and we're looking forward to seeing what that looks like in 2026. Absolutely. Moving on to another film, we had announced that Kristen Stewart is kind of returning to vampires. Of course, we know her biggest with the Twilight series came out, but this is going to be a much darker, more adult take. Joining her will be Oscar Isaac. It's this was the description of it as it was announced. It's a hedonistic vampire thriller called Flesh of the Gods from director, I'm going to butcher it, Panos Cosmatos, who did Mandy, which Mandy was a crazy film too. Yeah. The film is set in 1980s LA, so being this kind of crazy adult period piece. I hate calling 80s a period piece because that's when I was born, but I mean, makes me feel old.
I mean, it wasn't last week, buddy. It was like it's been a while since the 80s now. Trust me, we get reminded of it every single day. But No, this sounds like a lot of fun potentially. So you throw it in the 80s in LA. You throw in vampires. If it's going to be an adult take, you have to assume things like drugs and violence are going to play a part in it. I absolutely love Oscar Isaac. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorite actors right now. And Kristen Stewart going back to vampires is a big deal, right? Because like you said, she blew up internationally playing Bella Swan in the Twilight films. So the fact that she's going and doing a different take on vampires, I'd be curious to see how she's grown as an actress, because she really has. She's done some really fantastic films over the last few years, and her taking, going back to, if you want to call it her roots a little bit as a vampire character, like, I'm excited to see what she does with it.
Yeah, we have kind of an explosion of vampire-related things coming out. Like Interview with the Vampire has been redone as a series. We had the Nicolas Cage vampire movie that was over the top. Renfield was so just gory, crazy, over the top. We've talked about it several times with Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. They're doing their period vampire piece, which I believe I've heard the code name for it is grilled cheese.
I love that. I love that so much.
But we've got a lot of vampire stuff coming out. Oh, I almost forgot Nosferatu, which I'm really looking forward to, is going to be later this year. So yeah, we've got a lot of vampire stuff coming, but it's kind of been, we might get one or two here and there, but this seems like a big resurgence of vampire and monster stuff. We've got Godzilla doing so well, and Universal's opening a monster land in the theme park and stuff. So we've got kind of a resurgence of the monsters coming back.
I love it because those are such classic stories from our youth. Like growing up, vampire stories have been, it seems like we cycle through like different monsters that are in for the times, right? So vampires were it for a long time, and then zombies became a thing for a long time, which they still kind of are, but now it's looking like we're circling back to vampires again and getting some new stories. It's a lot of fun. So I'm here for all the monster stories, you know what I mean? We love horror films just as much as we love any other genre, and those classic monster films are ones that we definitely hold very dearly. I love watching, Halloween time, going back and watching a lot of the old classic, even black and white monster films that are so good and so well done and still hold up. Obviously visual effects wise, maybe not as much, but the stories are great. So I'm very much looking forward to this film when it comes out, for sure.
Absolutely. Like, all of these sound like they have great potential to do something different from one another and be really good vampire tales.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that when it comes out. So moving on to a story that I'm pretty excited about, a film that's been announced now. Paul Rudd and Nick Jonas are joining up in a film called Power Ballad. It's being directed by John Carney, who's probably most famous for the film Sing Street. That's probably their most famous film. But the premise of the story is a wedding singer and a rock star, and there's a song that kind of comes between them, and they kind of fight over it. So part of me is kind of hoping that the roles get reversed in this film, and you get Nick Jonas as the wedding singer and Paul Rudd as the professional musician, because it would just be morbid humor for me. Would get a lot of enjoyment from seeing Nick Jonas as a wedding singer and Paul Rudd being taken seriously.
You had me at Paul Rudd.
Absolutely.
I will take, speaking of vampires, a guy hasn't aged in 300 years.
A literal vampire. Yes.
I'll watch anything that he does, and of course, doing a comedic film like this, I do hope they do this. Which maybe we'll get an Adam Sandler wedding singer cameo or something pop up, and it would be fun. But this sounds like great fun. He's played something with music before. When I heard this, "I Love You, Man" and "Slap of the Bass" popped in my head immediately. Like, I just love and adore Paul Rudd, and I can't wait. This just going to be hysterical and so much fun to watch.
Yeah, we don't have like a release date or anything for it, but it's Paul Rudd. It's sign me up. You know what I mean?
All you need to know is Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd's in it. Go see it. That's pretty easy. But the premise of the film seems to be pretty cool. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably going to be the way we actually are going to get it. And Paul Rudd's a wedding singer and Nick Jonas is the professional musician, which not really a stretch for him, obviously. But it sounds like it could be a good comedy type film it's gonna very much make me laugh, because I love music to begin with, and that just the premise of that just sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, the premise plus Paul Rudd, and I was hooked as soon as I read that story. Yep, I'm there. We're seeing it.
Sign me up.
So we touch on this on a previous episode here, which is a really interesting story that Sony and investment group Apollo Global have put in a $26 billion all-cash bid for Paramount. Now, things have been weird with Paramount. Like, they just had their investor call, which it was 9 minutes long. They apparently ousted their CEO. He stepped down. He was gone. A new, I think, trio stepped in his place that's going to be running it. They did a brief talk, again, 9 minutes, and then played the Mission Impossible theme song so they wouldn't have loudly, like very loudly, so they wouldn't have to answer any questions, and just ended it. Like, so weird. I'm guessing a lot of stuff that we just haven't heard about or known with Paramount is going rough, but I mean, $26 billion cash for Paramount from Sony.
And that's insane because Paramount's a big time studio, right? But they've not been without, like you've mentioned, they've not been without their troubles lately. Like, there's been a lot of rumblings that somebody is working to acquire them, right? There's been talks of a possible merge with NBC Universal. There's been a talk
of... NBC Universal's been going after Warner Brothers, I believe.
As well, yeah. But there has been rumblings for both because, a lot of these companies are trying to acquire as many assets as they can. And Paramount's been one of those that's been no stranger to, wanting to sell off the rights. But the fact that Sony's willing to put in such a big bid, all cash for it, that's not an insignificant offer because you got to think that's one they're going to be strongly considering, which I wonder what the ramifications of that are going to be, because that's a pretty powerful duo, because Sony's a big time player now.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're willing to throw around money like that for a property like that is very interesting to see what the future of that's going to look like if it winds up going through.
And you have to see if it goes through and makes it through all the legal processes, because these are two monumental studios combining together, kind of like when Disney got Fox. That was a monumental merger, and we'll have to see how this plays out. But we talked about it before, like, we're getting the big studios are kind of getting whittled down to just a few. Like, they're still active in there, but underneath the umbrella of another one. Like, yeah, with everything we've seen and heard about the troubles with Paramount and with their CEO and all that stuff, it sounds like they're probably not going to be turning this down.
Yeah, and we'll be curious to see what that means for, obviously Paramount Plus is a popular, streaming service as well. What that means for us as consumers, what that's going to look like for us is, yet to be determined, but it's definitely something we have to keep an eye on because it's a big momentum shift for the industry if those two wind up combining forces.
Absolutely.
Sure. But moving on to another story coming out of the MCU this week, not a ton of MCU news this week, but we did get a little bit of a tidbit of information from Giancarlo Esposito, who has announced that he is going to be playing a role in the MCU, but it's not necessarily one that people have theorized. I know one of the more popular ones is he's going to be a variant of Charles Xavier or something when they finally do the X-Men. Doesn't sound like that's going to be the case because it sounds like it's going to be something new that nobody's talked about.
But with Marvel and everything else, they don't like to show their hands too early. So if he's saying it's something original and new, maybe it's a little bit of just stop thinking of me as Professor X and then he's Professor X. Because that's what you got to think of. What are they casting for right now? Is Fantastic Four, maybe Spider-Man 4, and then X-Men coming pretty close after that. So
that we're aware of,
Yeah, that we're aware of. And the projects, maybe even Blade, but Blade, going back to vampires, that's something else that's coming out if we ever see it. Like, we love Blade, but this has been such a troubled production. Could he be joining Blade? Could he be joining the X-Men? Joining the Fantastic Four? So there's a lot of places he could be going in the MCU right now.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's TBD, right? So I guess we'll have to wait and see what he winds up doing. We love Giancarlo Esposito. I know, obviously, most people know him as Gus Fring in Breaking Bad, if you don't know who he was. But fantastic actor. He's been in a lot of different stuff. My favorite thing about Giancarlo Esposito, for whatever reason, is if you go to meet Giancarlo Esposito at like a convention or something, and that he does a ton of these, but he's super personable before you take a photo, and then when you take a photo, stone face. It's so funny seeing so many different people's photos of him online that he just goes like complete Gus Fring like.
Yeah, because he's known for being a villain. We don't know if he's been cast as a villain or if he's going to be, a good guy. But yeah, to see that change in him, that he can go so quickly to...
Fantastic.
Because he knows that's what the fans want. They want the mean, evil, bad guy when they take the picture with him. But yeah, he said there's so many great videos of how personable he is to fans, which is great to see. And, loved him in The Mandalorian and what they're doing there. And I'm assuming we're going to be seeing him pop back up with, maybe the Mandalorian movie or whatever's happening with the next season, if that's still happening. But I love to see him being in the MCU. Like, he's one that we've kind of heard talk and rumblings about for a while, that fans have been wanting him in the MCU for a long time. But who he ends up being, that's going to be really interesting. If he is Professor X, all for it. Like, it's going to be hard to see him not be a villain, but, it's not going to take that long to adapt to him being a good guy.
Yeah, so we'll just have to wait and see, and the jury's still out, and I'm excited to see what he winds up doing, because I love him as an actor, and I think he's got a lot to bring with whatever he gets signed on to do.
Yep. In some other casting news here, we got a movie called Sacrifice. This movie is following a failing movie star who tries to get back in the spotlight at a charity gala, but gets upstaged and kidnapped by radical warriors. So
it's a weird premise.
By that premise, it sounds like it's going to be a fun, maybe more comedic action movie, but it has a stacked cast.
Absolutely.
You've got Chris Evans, Anya Taylor-Joy, Salma Hayek, and Brendan Fraser have all joined the cast. Even if I didn't know the premise, from seeing that cast alone, I would be there.
Yeah, sign me up. They're all fantastic. I've loved the career resurgence that Brendan Fraser has had over the last few years with, Doom Patrol and The Whale, and him winning an Oscar for that. Amazing. And just the fact that he's, getting these types of roles again. The premise of the film sounds like it was written by like an AI prompt. It's like, write about a film starring these guys, and it's like, okay, like the first half of that premise that you mentioned sounded great. Like, he's trying to get, a failed actor trying to get back into the spotlight, and then you take a hard right at abducted by radical warriors. Like, what the heck does that even mean? It's like radical warriors. I'm like, I think an AI bot might have written the premise for this film.
I can't hear radical without going back to the original live action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. So it's like, but the premise sounds silly, but I mean, you got a stacked cast that they're going to give everything they can to that. And as you mentioned, Brendan is the guy. He has the entire internet behind him with this resurgence, so we know everything that he's gone through in his life and everything else, and anything he does, which is the good part that you can see of the internet. Anything that's posted about Brendan, all the comments, all the reactions, everything. Like, I'm so happy for him. I'm so glad for him. So, I want to see his name keep popping up in a ton of stuff for years to come.
I'm having a hard time putting, my mind goes to different places when you I'm sorry to keep going back to the premise of the film, because I love Brendan Fraser as well. He's absolutely amazing. Seems like one of the most genuinely nice guys in Hollywood that everybody seems to be rooting for. And if you go back and see his Oscar acceptance speech, phenomenal, fantastic. You just see that whole room just so overjoyed to see him get that moment, and just how everybody reacted to that. I'll always remember that's top 10 Oscar speech all time for me. But just the way my mind goes on this premise is you just go to this charity event and you see somebody getting is it ninjas attacking this guy?
Ninjas popped in my mind.
If it wasn't written by I'm sorry to crap on this film before even seeing anything about it, but it's just based off this premise that we're getting. It's like, okay, you cut to this charity gala. Is it Brendan Fraser getting abducted? Because I don't buy Chris Evans getting abducted here. But it could be. But it's like you're at this charity gala, everybody's having a good time. Glass windows break, and here come the ninjas to capture this guy for whatever reason. But I don't know. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but my mind's going to so many different places.
I mean, we've had some crazy premises that have turned out to be really great movies and some fun movies. So, I'm looking forward to see what they end up doing with this, because, that cast mixed with that premise okay, let's see what happens here.
I love it, though. But like you said, casting alone, sign me up. I'm going to see it. It sounds like a lot of fun, and we'll see what it actually looks like when they start filming it and we get the trailer and everything like that. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Making a little bit of a left turn away from that to another property that you and I both love is Robin Hood, right? So there's been so many different fantastic Robin Hood films, both comedy-wise and action-wise and drama-wise, that we both love over the years. And it sounds like we're getting a new film around Robin Hood, basically, called The Death of Robin Hood, which is going to be starring Jodie Comer and Hugh Jackman, who is going to be playing the role of Robin Hood now, which is very interesting. But it sounds like he's going to be somebody that's, being held captive. He's badly injured and reflecting on his life. It sounds like it's going to be another darker version of this character. So I'm excited to see what that looks like for sure.
I mean, Hugh Jackman is Robin Hood. You got Nossi being, a British lore character, which sure. I can't talk too much since I love Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, even though Kevin Costner couldn't hold an accent at all throughout that movie. That's a guilty pleasure of mine. Like, it's got some rough parts, but I mean, you got Kevin Costner and Alan Rickman and everything together. Like, it was just too good. And Robin Hood Men in Tights. Give me anything Robin Hood. I really enjoy medieval when it comes to Robin Hood or King Arthur or something like that. Absolutely. Even though they've been done so many different times, I will still find myself going back. And yeah, Jodie Comer, I would think that she's playing Maid Marian, but the premise kind of is around the mysterious woman is holding him captive. So maybe it's a darker twist on Maid Marian that she is holding Robin captive, and it's not exactly the love story that we normally get between them, but she's trying to make him atone and repent for the stuff he's done. Maybe he's not the great good guy that we've seen, but it's two great actors taking on a darker take on Robin Hood. Absolutely will be there for it.
Yeah, I mean, Robin Hood as a character is obviously his mantra is, rob from the rich and give to the poor, right? So that's kind of the whole mantra that Robin Hood lives by. Maybe it's the wealthy capturing him and making him atone for what he's done. Mm-hmm. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited for that too, because Hugh Jackman's another one of those guys that you see his name pop up on something, I'm going to give it a watch, right? Mm-hmm. So he's absolutely fantastic as an actor. I'll be curious to see his take. I can't not imagine him as Wolverine now, so seeing him in Robin Hood, it's going to cause me to rewire my brain a little bit, but he's amazing, and I'm very much looking forward to that too.
Yeah. So we wanted to end our news today talking about a pretty interesting article that or magazine cover that Chris Hemsworth did, I believe it was for Variety, where he kind of talked about his time with Marvel, mainly about Thor Love and Thunder. So he kind of came out and bared it all, talking about how he felt like they didn't stick the landing with Thor Love and Thunder, that he got caught up in the improv, the wackiness, and kind of became a parody of himself, parody of Thor. Like, he wasn't happy with it, even going on to say, I think we owe fans another film. Like, this could also be, we heard Taika Waititi would not be returning to do any more Thor. That maybe now we know that might have been part of Chris, because he wants to kind of do something different with Thor, wants to take it in a different direction than the kind of last two. Like, I enjoyed the last two that went a little bit more comedic and over the top. I do feel Thor Love and Thunder could have been probably more dark and dramatic, because you were dealing with the cancer storyline with Jane, and you had Gore the Butcher, which is a very dark character, and they kept it even more over the top. Like, I feel like you could have had a bigger emotional impact and have more layers to Thor throughout that, with him dealing with, Jane going through that. I didn't think it was terrible, but that was also, I think, the biggest we've ever seen Chris Hemsworth, because he was getting ready to do a Hulk Hogan biopic as well, which I think that's kind of in limbo. But the stuff he has put himself through to be Thor, to the physicality and everything else, like we talked about it last with Tom Holland and everything else, like these guys put themselves through so much and don't always have a say in what happens with the characters that they're portraying for so long.
Yeah, and I appreciate the honesty that he gives in this article, because it's fascinating, right? Because you don't really get too much of a peek behind the curtain about how actors feel about the roles that they're in, especially ones that they've done multiple times and done multiple movies on. Like, a lot of times you just hear, hey, as long as the story's good, I'll keep coming back. But like, you see the weight that he held with this film and the toll that it took on him, because like you said, the first two Thor films were good, but they were considered some of the weaker parts of the MCU in that iteration of it. In the storytelling, I know Thor the Dark World is widely considered one of the worst Marvel films, and Love and Thunder kind of went that same direction as far as like fan reception to the film. Like, it's a funny movie, but I think when they pivoted and they struck gold with Ragnarok, because Ragnarok is a fantastic film. Like, it reignited his love to play Thor again, because he was almost done back then playing Thor. And the fact that Ragnarok was so good and kind of breathed a little bit more life into that character for him, that he was willing to do Love and Thunder as well. And the fact that he didn't seem to have the best of experiences in making that, it didn't, hit the way he wanted it to, I can totally understand because, like you said, it gets a lot of criticism and a lot of it justly so for trying too hard. Like it came across as trying too hard to be funny and recapturing that lightning in the bottle that was Ragnarok and how successful that was. But yeah, you have him talk about just the care that he puts into this role and how much it means to him. And it really comes across when you see him, in these films. But Thor has been one of those characters, like I know you and I have talked about this, that he seems to have gone through like some of the most ups and down ebb and flows as a character of any character we've seen in the MCU. Like he seems to be the most, I don't want to say emotionally complex, but he's covered a wide variety of things in the 4 films that he's done. And, the fact that he wants to maybe put a final stamp on it for himself and give everybody one last Thor film that, could be an encapsulation of how he really wants to present this character is quite fascinating because, like you said, we don't get this look too often in how actors feel about these roles. Like if it goes well, they're happy. If it doesn't go well, they make up a ton of excuses, but he seems to have really owned it and felt it and processed it. And it's very emotionally mature of him to do that and to, come out and say those things because not a lot of people do that. And I commend him completely for doing it.
But yeah, as you mentioned with the roller coaster, not only with the kind of the emotional through it, he's been the most messed with, like when it comes to Thor, like because of the relationship with Loki, but also with Jane and where he fits in with the Avengers and everything. And even Chris talked about with the Avengers, he kind of felt replaceable among them. That, he's here in the suit and the muscles and everything else, and he's seeing everybody else with great dialogue and funny scenes or big action or something else, and he just feels like I'm here. And that, he really felt replaceable, like he's a security guard for the other actors in the Avengers instead of like being guy. And I kind of get Thor is a very kind of like Hulk. Like a lot of people feel like Hulk wasn't handled that well after kind of starting with Infinity War and moving on because you kind of limited him. You didn't have him. You had Bruce Banner. You didn't really have Hulk a lot. Right. They didn't feel like they knew what to do, and kind of felt like they didn't know what to do with Thor at times as well because he is so overpowered. I mean, it worked for Endgame and Infinity War for the big action sequences with him, but it kind of gets lost because he is a god and he is so powerful. Like they have to try to limit him in some way, but it does feel like Chris felt that limitation on himself as an actor and for the character that he's really enjoyed and loved doing, but the changes and roller coasters he's been on, as you mentioned, he wanted to kind of stop earlier until like Ragnarok got him feeling better about himself and the character. But then at the same time, Love and Thunder took him back out of like, what were we doing with that? Like, but it was really enlightening to see someone open up that honestly about it, especially I think we already have Thor 5 has been discussed that it's going to be in production. So he's already kind of signed on for it to be this honest and open about his experience with Thor. It's really nice to see that he's being open with everybody like that.
Yeah, and that's definitely because I know you and I are both like mental health advocates, big time. Like, not holding things in and speaking on your experiences and processing emotions and feeling things like that. And the fact that he's come up and done this so publicly is, I can't applaud him enough. It really makes you want to root for the guy to be successful because everything we've seen about Chris Hemsworth is like he's another one of those guys that he just seems like the most genuinely nice guy that nobody has anything negative to say about him. Like there's, he has all these amazing personable interactions with people when you see him on the street, and he's just this amazingly lovable guy. And like those are the types of people that you want to see be successful and root for and hope they succeed and hope they get to do all the things that fulfill them creatively and just live the absolute best life that they can. And I hope that kind of encourages more people to kind of come out and start speaking openly about these things, and it doesn't hurt their careers, and it doesn't have any negative effects on it because it is important to do. It is important to talk about your experiences. Absolutely. And bust down a lot of that stigma that we're not allowed to talk publicly about things. And I couldn't be more prouder of him for doing that.
Yeah, and I do hope for him, for his mental and everything else, and just feeling good about what he's done as Thor, that he gets to do maybe one more final proper Thor that he gets to have. You know, we have Tom Holland said he's on the creative process for Spider-Man 4. I hope he gets to be a part of that creative process for Thor 5 and gets to do a movie that he feels really good about, because there is a lot of weight that gets put on these actors when it comes to especially comic book properties, Star Wars. We've seen what's happened with Daisy Ridley and, you know, John Boyega, all the feedback and everything that's happened from that. Like, in the end, like, they're playing characters. They're doing what's written. They're doing what they're directed to do, and people are giving them hate or talking bad about them, and that can really affect mental and help. And it's like same thing as we had with Ahmed Best with Jar Jar Binks, which he's finally starting to get his recognition that, you know, he did what he was paid to do, what he was told to do. Like, everyone has mixed feelings on Jar Jar, but you can't have people attacking them because they did what was written for them, what was directed for them. And that's kind of what Chris did here. Like, we don't know how much, you know, leeway he was given to help with the building of the dialogue or the story or something for the character. They're doing what's put out in front of them. And we mentioned here that I love that he's spoken out, not negatively about anybody or anything else, except just he just doesn't feel like he did right, and that he's carrying that kind of burden with him over a character that he plays. And I do hope, as I mentioned, and I'll wrap up with that he gets to finish it how he feels he needs to finish the character.
Absolutely. And that's a great way of punctuating. And I'd also like to finish by saying, please don't hold anything in. If you need to talk to somebody, if it's professionally, if it's personal, if you have someone in your life that you can bounce these things off of, can't encourage that enough, because, you know, life is already hard. And I'm not going to sit here and preach too long about it, but yeah, don't hold things in. Talk through them, you know, process your emotions. It's okay to feel things, and it's okay to process and understand those feelings. And, you know, it's all in. Hopefully, you know, if you need the help, you get the help that you need to, like you said, understand and process those thoughts and feelings and emotions, and it helps makes you become a better person, and you can live life happier. That's absolutely, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about for us.
Take care of your mental health, your physical health, your mental health. All of it's wrapped up around each other. We all struggle with different things. Just don't be afraid to reach out to somebody when you're feeling that you need to talk. Yeah,
absolutely. So, moving on now to our television review of the week, we have episode 8 of X-Men 97. It is part 1 of a 3-part finale. The first episode, Tolerance's Extinction, part 1. So we're getting towards the end now. We're getting to the end of this first season of a show that we're having so much fun with, but it's a continuation now. We're getting linear in our storytelling. We're not jumping around in time periods. We're dealing with the fallout of what happened in the previous episodes. So it appears that the events of the attack of Genosha are permanent. We're getting a lot of confirmation on that. We get a little bit of a backstory in this episode on, you know, Bastion, who is the big bad that we're working to finish the season with. It's a lot. There was a lot of things that they were setting up in this episode that have me really looking forward to the next 2 parts and how this season's going to wrap up.
Yeah, because we don't really still know what's going to happen. Like, we got a lot laid out in front of us, but it's still like, what is going to happen here? Because, you know, Cable laid out that Bastion did all this stuff, and there may be absolute points in time that can't be changed. That, you know, Cable has gone back, which he didn't give a number, but he was just like, I've tried so many different times and I've been pulled out every single time. Like, that might be something that has to happen, which could mean Gambit and the others are permadead, but, you know, that normally doesn't last in comic books that someone dies, but there could be another way they come back. But yeah, we got that revelation, and then that, you know, they're like, well, yeah, so do we have a Days of Future Past kind of thing where the future is destroyed? But Cable's kind of like, well, he actually created a utopia where there's peace and everything else, but it comes at mutants' demise. Like, they're basically being slaves and working and following all these new type of rebuilt humans who have this sentinel virus in them that can, you know, they're kind of cyborgs. They're part human, but they can be activated with sentinel and mutant powers, kind of, because it kind of seems it's a mix of both, of like mutant powers or sentinel powers, because they got blasts that they can do from their hands and rocket from their feet like sentinels can, but, you know, they're humans. And yeah, it builds us up like, kind of what are we trying to, they're trying to prevent the mutants from being wiped out, but it's, the cyborg sentinels seem like a very tough enemy to be going against.
Yeah, and it's very harrowing because in the episode you see humans being activated, right? So you see that come to life, and this is further along than we originally thought that it was. Like you saw the first instance of it with the doctor in the last episode that gets activated and becomes like Sentinel-like, but you see just how far that's actually spread to humanity because you see a lot of different humans being activated and starting to attack the X-Men at this point, and you get some amazing action sequences throughout it that come without it. I know you and I talked. One of the things we wanted to highlight was the amazing job the animators did on the Nightcrawler, like teleporting.
Oh, that was amazing.
Like as he's going about and doing his thing, it's just visually so stunning. Like it just speaks to how well this has been put together, and it's building up to it. It's building up to a crazy conclusion because you get not only like the advancements of the story, we get a lot of really cool cameos as well.
Yeah, because we learn who all Bastian has been working with, who's behind it. So we have Operation Zero Tolerance that's being done. And we kind of, in his lair, we're seeing that he has Magneto chained up. And we learn that Doom and Baron Zemo and they're all a part of it. But we also learn that Dr. Cooper, that we've seen pop up a lot through here, to talk to Magneto about, giving up, coming with us, all that. She's been a part of this Operation Zero Tolerance, although she admits she didn't know anything about Genosha and she was having second thoughts and she didn't feel great about what's happening. She was all a part of this, and then ends up coming to the point where she frees Magneto from being captured. And, this happens during the release and activation of the cyborg sentinels that are overpowering the X-Men. Like they're struggling and not able to take on this force. And we did get some humor throughout because we have Cable and Jean Grey and Cyclops and the Blackbird and everything. And Jean's like, this is like the third one in a week or something. They're not going to be happy about it. And so they have to evacuate and they jump in a Porsche. And Cable's like, you have a Porsche? You just get a smirk from Cyclops. And you see, you got some humor at that. And then like Jubilee is at a mall with Sunspot and they're shopping, and the Sentinel androids attack them, and she has a great line that's, I'm totally done with malls, as she's running away. So if you know the original animated series, the very first episode, Night of the Sentinels, is her being attacked by Sentinels at a mall.
And it's a fun callback to that as well. It's so good. But one of my favorite cameos in the episode is the 90s Spider-Man as well. So you get an appearance from the 90s Spider-Man, the animated series Spider-Man, which, if you know anything that's come out about it since the episode is aired, the actor that's done the voice for that original Spider-Man says he'd be open to doing a Spider-Man 98, which, sign me up. I will take that as well, because that's another one of our favorite animated series growing up, was that iconic Spider-Man series. So you get that one as well. That was so much fun.
I loved his line in that post real quick because he was like, I haven't talked with Marvel. I don't know anything about it. I would absolutely do it and love to come back. Hopefully, maybe I'll get a call and I'll sign an NDA and I'll go suspiciously quiet and you'll know what it means. Like, I just love that bit of humor he threw.
I love that he's manifesting it, but like, because we're doing it now, right? Like we're getting these throwbacks. Give me that animated continuation as well. I'm here for it. But yeah, we get some other like really cool, like really quick cameos too, because Silver Samurai makes an appearance, and Omega Red, who is a very powerful mutant, also makes an appearance there. And like you see all these things coming together, and it's building towards this amazing fight that's going to happen, and it leads to a very memeable, I don't want to say memeable, but you see, if you've followed anything on the show online since the episode has aired, the line from the takeaway line from the episode is Magneto was right? So Magneto all this time is saying, mutants have to really fight harder for themselves and not be as diplomatic with humans, because at the end of the day, he feels that humans will never accept mutants. And everything that we're seeing up to this point is proving that Magneto is right. Like, they're trying to do things the right way, and that's still not enough. And you get this really powerful, like you said, Magneto gets released and he just goes on and he's like, done. Enough is enough. Like,
EMP'd the planet.
Yeah. Like, EMP's the entire planet, which is insane. And then by the end of the episode, you finally get the arrival on Earth of Professor Xavier. He finally shows up. He shows up in his plane. He's coming to save it, and you get the famous Charles Xavier line to end the episode where he's telepathic. You see him speaking, and all of the characters. Like, it's really cool. I'm getting a little bit of goosebumps because it's one of my favorite things ever.
To me, my X-Men.
You get the "To me, my X-Men" line, and it's like, all right, now we're ready to go. Like, I'm excited to see where they go in these last 2 episodes because it's been so much fun. I mean, it's such a well-told story. Like, you're getting everybody finally congregating again, and it's going to be this amazing battle, and just curious to see what they do.
I don't know why it popped up in my mind right now, going back to Nightcrawler and Wolverine, because we got a great action sequence with them working together, and Wolverine getting lifted in the sky and then like tornadoing down with his claws. Like, he's kind of, we know with the original animated series, he was kind of the main star. Like, he was what it was all about. In '97, they've kind of put him towards the back a little bit more because some people might be getting a little tired of Wolverine. I will always love him, but you got a great sequence of that. But I loved another line in there that Wolverine makes a joke about. They were saying he's outnumbered, and he said, "These 6 are not." And then, Nightcrawler being German, he's got swords and everything with his tail in his hands. Like, no, 9. I'm like, the goofy silliness of that line, it just had me laughing.
It keeps a lot of that original X-Men the Animated Series charm, and it's such a well-told story so far. It's cohesive. It makes sense. It's a really well done story for animation, right? A lot of times we don't get a lot of this depth, and we're getting a ton of depth in these things, and it's building to just what I can imagine is going to be an absolutely insane last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I feel part 1 here has done a great job of kind of setting us up for that end game. We got the full backstory of Bastion, just how strong his hold is on everything. Like, he's got Doom working for him. He's got a lot of people with Sinister working as well, and he's got a lot underneath him, and just seeing how widespread the Cyborg Sentinels are. Like, we're in for potentially crazy last 2 episodes, and I'm all for it. Like, it's been a great series so far. It's been great to revisit, to have back, but they've done such a great job of paying homage to the original series, doing right by the comic books, and also kind of doing their own thing. And this first part was great. Cannot wait for parts 2 and 3.
Absolutely. So that's X-Men 97. Episodes 1 through 8 are out right now on Disney Plus. We cannot recommend enough if you check it out if you haven't checked it out so far.
Yep. We checked out The Fall Guy for our film review this week, and I'm sure everyone's seen it. It's Emily Blunt, Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling is playing a stunt actor who ends up having a terrible injury that takes him away from that world for a while, and he gets called back because the guy that he normally is the stuntman for has gone missing, and the producer is trying to get him to not only help with the movie, but also to help find him. But there's some nefarious stuff behind that as well.
Absolutely.
And this is loosely based on the Fall Guy series with Lee Majors back in the past, which are some fun nods to that, which I don't want to give too much away.
Sure.
Sound effects, maybe. But I really had a fun time with this movie. Like, it really did a good job of showing what it takes to get a movie made, especially a big stunt-heavy movie. I felt like it paid such great respect to stuntmen and their craft and what they do. You also got some emotional stuff about, Ryan revealing just what it has a toll on his body as a stuntman and stuff. And his chemistry with Emily Blunt also helped carry this movie really well. I don't think if they didn't have the chemistry together that they have, that it may not have been as fun, because they really helped push that movie over the edge.
Yeah, and the dialogue between them two is very well written. It's not terribly complex, but it works. It works within the framework of the story as well. They're both 2 fantastic actors as well. Like you said, it does pay an incredible homage to the work that stuntmen go through to put a film like this together. They're definitely one of the many unsung heroes of the film industry. Just everything they have to put their body through. And you get a very meta take on that in this film, because you get to see a lot of the practical, shot after shot after shot sometimes that you have to do to get this film to look the way that it does. There's a very funny sequence where a little bit of a backstory at the beginning of the film. You find out that Ryan Gosling's character and Emily Blunt's character are, kind of dating, sleeping together, seeing each other, and the injury that he goes through kind of pulls him away. And he talks about like some of the struggles that he goes through after the injury and how he more or less kind of like wallows in his own self-pity in a while and loses contact with her. And the premise of the film is that he gets pulled back in to shoot this movie that she's ultimately directing because it's her dream film. The people that are trying to pull him back in know that he would jump at anything to help her. There's a little funny play on that as well before he goes back, but it really goes through a lot of the things these guys have to go through to shoot these scenes. Like I said, there's a funny scene where he goes back and they reconnect and she's still very much mad at him. And there's a sequence where he has to be lit on fire and blown into a rock, like an explosion sequence. And he has to do it over and over and over.
Did you see there's a little stutter? Oh, I think you tracked wrong.
She puts him through it. But it's a funny take on a very real thing that happens to these actors, that a lot of times you have to set yourself on fire sometimes, or you have to go through these explosion shots where you get thrown into something, or you have to jump off something, or you have to, I'm minimalizing it a little bit, but there's just so much practical things that they have to do to make look real. And a lot of cases are very much real that they have to do, and like jumping through broken glass windows and all these other, incredible things that they have to do to make these shots look as good as they do. And I think they do a very good way of telling it in an entertaining story that, there's humor, there's drama, there's suspense, like you say, but it very much does pay respect to these people. And I love that.
Yeah, because it's very much over the top, because they're trying to break that fourth wall. Absolutely. And show you a movie being made. So you've got a movie showing a movie being made in the behind the scenes, which I would almost feel like that had to be difficult to do, that they're filming this movie about a movie being filmed and you're showing the behind the scenes of the action sequences. But you also know that Ryan had a stunt double that was doing a lot of the stunt doubling that he was doing. So that whole line of stuff, that had to be very difficult to do at times. And yeah, it was like her movie is a kind of over the top. It's her dream role, like big sci-fi that's supposed to be like Dune-ish, like mega sci-fi, but it was silly and over the top, and we got some great cameos and other things that happened in it as well. But it works because of them blending that fourth wall break of showing you how the action sequences are done at some parts, and then doing, kind of showing you every type of action sequence you could kind of do in a movie, because we got being thrown through glass and car chases and helicopter air stuff and just jumping off of a lot of things and gunplay and sword play, and like kind of gave you a whole portfolio of stunt work in this movie. And in the end, it was such a fun movie to watch, and it kind of is a great date night movie too, because me and my wife went together, which we have to joke about that, we sometimes won't see these movies together, that me and my wife will get a time to not have the kids and go see a movie. So, we were trying to figure out what days we're going, and we ended up going, and, me and my wife are here, and then Josh is like 5 seats away. We didn't plan it that way. We didn't like excluding him or anything. It was just like, oh, we ended up showing up to the same showing anyways.
Yeah, because I'd bought my tickets to this movie like 3 weeks before you did, I think, or a couple weeks at least. And that was the time that I picked, the seat that I picked, and come to find out, like the week we go to see the film, you're like, oh, we decided to go see this movie. This is the time and date that we're going. I'm like, that's literally the same time that I picked, and you're sitting like 5 seats away from me, which is hilarious, but it worked out. It was a lot of fun. We had a good time with the film. But I also wanted to kind of show some love to a few of the other, because it is obviously Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling are two of the top stars of the film, but it's very much a stacked cast with a couple other extra people. You got Winston Duke, who plays the stunt coordinator director that's, good friends with Ryan Gosling as well, that has some really cool scenes that he does in the film as well. You have Hannah Waddingham, who we are big fans of Ted Lasso. She plays the boss in Ted Lasso. Fantastic actress. She does a great job as well playing the lead actor that, Ryan Gosling's doing the stunts for, who is also played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, who plays this, I want to say stereotypical leading man in Hollywood, doesn't do his own stunts, but has a complex about it and is kind of a jerk. And, I won't give too much of the plot away, but they also have really good performances in this film as well. Hannah Waddingham in particular, she's just amazing. I I love her.
Yes, I mean, she was in Game of Thrones as the memorable the Shame Nun and everything, and the waterboarding, which she even said she's had some residual issues since doing that scene. She's always fantastic. She was just amazing in Ted Lasso, and she got to play a more conniving producer type of role and get to see her kind of chew the scenes that she's in as this kind of more villainous character, I would say, without giving too much away, but it kind of seen in there that it also paints as, Aaron Taylor Johnson is the typical lead actor. She's the typical bad Hollywood producer agent. Yeah. So, they were fantastic. Everyone did such a good job in it. The action sequences were fantastic. Of course, the director of the film used to be a stuntman, so it's also a love letter from him to all the stunt people. And I really want to make sure people know to stay for the credits. There is an end-credit scene that is
so good.
A fun little scene.
So good.
But in between the end of the film and that end credit scene is the actual stunts that they did. So you get to see the stunt people who did the stunts for the Fall Guy get some limelight there at the end. And I thought that was really great, as they're already paying respect to what they do and shining a light what they do with the film, but to actually have a lot of footage in the credits of them doing their work and getting to see the light on fire scene and what it takes with all that petroleum jelly rubbed all over them, and get to see what actually takes place with even seeing what Ryan did, because there were some sequences that, he actually did do that. So, but it was such a fun film, great date night movie. Again, it pays such respect for stunt actors that do deserve to have their own award sections. Like their 100%. Category for stunt work needs to happen at the Oscars. For other awards, they literally put their lives on the line to do these movies. And if they do their job right, and it's kind of mentioned in the film too, if they do their job right, you don't even know they exist.
Right.
And they deserve more recognition. And this film pays great respect to them while also entertaining you.
I mean, they have an Oscar for practically everything else that goes into making a film. I don't understand why they don't either. I'm gonna stop before I go on a long tangent about it anyway.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, they absolutely deserve their own award, because it is such a crucial part. I mean, you have visual effects Oscars, you have wardrobe, you have literally everything else except a lot of people doing what, in all honesty, is one of the more physical parts of making a film. Literally. And
especially these big action sequences, comic book movies, action films, they are a majority of the movie.
Yeah.
They're there for the explosions. They're there for the fight sequences. They're like what John Wick and comic book movies, all those would be without the stunt people, you wouldn't have a movie.
Right. And it's more than overdue that these guys get the love that they get in this film. And I know when we went and saw it, there was a nice message from the director and Ryan Gosling before the film that was kind of a humorous, setting the tone for the film, but also like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Thank you for, supporting this film as well. And, just a really cool homage to some really hardworking people.
And I do want to touch on the promotion of the film leading up to it from the premiere week and everything, because like Ryan Gosling went on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel, or was it the Tonight Show? It was he went on one of the late night talk shows, and he does a fight sequence with, stunt actors and smashing vases and fights and attack. And then you come to the premiere, one of the premieres, which he dressed up as the Saturday Night Live skit with Beavis and Butthead and was going through all that. But they had fights, and like one of my favorites was, it was all stunt people, but it was the Fall Guys logo, and there was like a window in between, and they come crashing through the window, and they're just fighting over the top, and they're breaking off pieces of the Fall Guys word mark, and they're hitting each other with it. And like, they just went all out for everything. And again, showing love and respect to those actors, because they got to do these sequences and at the premiere in front of people, because it takes so much time and dedication, because they have to be precise to not hurt someone or kill somebody. Yeah. Everything has to be reviewed and gone over meticulously. And to see them doing great stunts live there, because there was even another one with Ryan. I think he was giving the thumbs up with two guys beside him, and they get pulled through the wall and everything, and they come back out and do the big thumbs up. Like, I love what they're doing to make the stunt actors, the pyrotechnics, everybody behind all of this stunt work, making them feel seen. I just wanted to make sure I included all that extra work they did for the promotion of the film with stunt work, and having the stunt actors out at the premiere doing work there was just fantastic.
It's absolutely art, and it deserves to be celebrated. And it gets, in our opinion, a proper celebration for those people that do this type of work on these films. So Fall Guy is in theaters right now. We cannot recommend it enough for you to go and see it.
So you may have noticed throughout this episode here, we have some goods on our table. So I'm going to go out and admit, my wife has a business called Nikki Foxx Creations, so she does everything from sublimation, doing rhinestones on tumblers. She does, sublimation on shirts and resin with, these are 4-leaf clover earrings that our youngest daughter actually has found. She has the most luck. Like, I don't know if I ever found a 4-leaf clover anywhere at any time, and she goes out in our yard and finds like 15 one night. I'm like, how did you find them all? Yeah. So my wife's turned them into resin stuff that she, actually shares the profits with our daughter, so she can have some money to put away from her help of, finding these 4-leaf clovers. But, we wanted to give a shout out. If you want any handcrafted goods, she can do customizations to this and the colors and anything else. She does amazing work. I'm very proud of everything that she's been doing with this. You can find her at NikkiFoxCreations.com. That's NIKKIFOXX. creations.com. Follow her on her socials, put in an order, give some love over to her, and let her know that we sent you over. And if you like anything that you see here, go order it. So if you're a company local to the Cincinnati area and you want us to show off your products as well, even if you're not local and you want to send us something, work out something that we can put your product out here on the podcast, we'd love to talk to you. Head over to wbtp.link. Check out our Work With Us link. Yep. You can contact us. You can also reach out to us directly at business@wbtp.link. We can talk and see what we can do to help you out with your items as well here on the podcast, because we, this is something small that we do, that we love to do. We're, consider small business that we love doing. We love supporting other small businesses like Nikki Foxx Creations and helping other companies and people, individuals, groups get their product or message or whatever else out, because we kind of all need that in this world and how things are going, especially how businesses and other things were devastated by COVID shutdowns and everything else. Everyone needs a hand every now and then, and we'd love to help with your products and services.
Absolutely. We'd love to work with you. So reach out, please. Like you said, go to willbringthepopcorn.com, check out our Work With You section, and send us, anything you've got, and we'd love to work with you.
So coming up this week in theaters, we have Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which we're really looking forward to seeing.
Absolutely.
On streaming side, we have Mother of the Bride on Netflix on May 9th. On demand, we have quite a few properties coming out, which we weren't able to see Abigail in theaters, and we're already looking to see that at home on demand purchase on May 7th. So I'm really looking forward to checking that out, but it's kind of surprising how quickly it's kind of moving out. It looked like a smaller film, and we were, the Fall Guy kind of kicked off our summer blockbuster season now. So some of these smaller films are going to have a smaller time window for their theatrical releases. Also out on May 7th is Founders Day, another horror film that we haven't seen a whole lot about since it came out. Kind of just did its thing, coming out on digital now. But also a movie we really enjoyed that we just reviewed a couple weeks ago is The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. That'll be out on digital on May 10th. We do highly recommend checking that film out if you want a crazy, fun, over-the-top action movie. It's well worth checking out. Henry Cavill, Alan Ritchson, all of them were just so much fun in that movie.
Absolutely. Go check it out in our archives.
So over on the TV side, we have Dark Matter coming out on Apple TV Plus this week, May 8th for that. Yep. That's a sci-fi series. Again, Apple TV Plus has been killing shows lately, so that's another one that I'm really looking forward to checking out. And then over on Sci-Fi, we have Reginald the Vampire Season 2 is also starting on May 8th, which, that's a fun vampire series as well. As we talked about vampires having a resurgence. We have another series that's doing vampires here, so you can check out Season 2 starting on May 8th.
So that'll do it for another episode of We'll Bring the Popcorn. We can't thank you enough for all your support so far in our journey into this podcasting thing. We're having a good time with it. Coming up on our next episode, we will be reviewing episode 9 of X-Men 97. We're getting close to the end. This will be the second part of the 3-part finale. Very much looking forward to that. We'll also have a review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. It's a film we're both very much looking forward to as well to review. That is a longer film. I've already looked at it. It's 2.5 hours. I hope you're ready to take a nap afterwards, because that's gonna wear us out for sure. But it's definitely one we're looking forward to.
We're not that old, Josh. Come on.
I'm ready to take a nap now. But anyway, please go to willbringthepopcorn.com. Check out all of our social media information there. It's a one-stop shop for anything you want. Get in touch with us. Do your business. Do your thing. We got merch. Once again, congratulations to Logan for winning our merch giveaway. We hope you enjoy your products as soon as you get them. And order one as well. I mean, you see Brad modeling the shirt here. We're really happy with how the shirts turned out, by the way. So if you'd like to get your hands on that, you can get the link to our merch there. Please don't forget to also join us on Discord as well. We'd love to meet you and talk to you about all the films we're seeing, things you're enjoying. We love that interaction as well, and all the interaction we get on our social media posts and our YouTube videos and everything like that. Yep. We cannot thank you enough. So until next time, I am Josh, he is Brad, and we will see you next week.